Hey, good morning, everybody. Another day of learning awaits us all. You're back on the Performance Shift podcast. And if you ever wonder what it takes to achieve remarkable success, to overcome obstacles, and transform your performance in the face of big change, then you are in the right place.
You certainly are. Welcome to Performance Shift, the podcast that will take you on a journey of discovery, exploration, and transformation, and give you the tools you need to navigate your own moments of change.
And you got two great hosts. Oh my gosh. My name is John Register. I'm a two-time Paralympic athlete, a combat Army veteran, and I'm an author.
And I am Kat Koppett, an organizational consultant, author, and improviser.
And together we're going to be sharing our expertise and insights on how to navigate change and find success in the face of adversity.
You are here with us live, then you are here with us live. If you are not, you can find us or share us on any place you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, anywhere.
And if you've been enjoying these episodes, please select that notification bell and share it with a friend. We've been having some great content, some great guests. We're playing fantastic games that you can actually use in your life, in your business as well. So feel free to use all of it, any of it, none of it, to help advance what you're doing in your work, in your field. We have a fantastic guest today, Kat. I can't wait to introduce you to her. And I know that you are halfway around the world right now, and you're doing your thing, improvisation, because that's what you do.
That's right. I'm at the Applied Improvisation Network Global Conference. I think it's like our 22nd or 23rd, and in Vancouver, Canada.
That's awesome. You got out of your teen years. That's good. You're growing. That's good.
That's right. That's right. We're a little less adolescent than we were even just a little
adolescent. Yeah. Love it. Well, our guest today, I met her in a retreat, a Buffalo retreat that was kind of almost like military led, I think, a little bit more, but was a fantastic one in Glen Eryie here in Colorado Springs. The Glen Eryie Castle was just really was drawn to her, and I want to just introduce you all to her as because I think in this topic of conversation today, she is top choice for this. So she is widely known as Dr. T, a leading authority in the fields of healthcare and fitness with a specialization in movement, health, and inclusive wellness. As a former Marine Corps engineer officer and combat veteran, Division I softball player, and 2021 Force of Good Recipient, Dr. T's journey to becoming an expert in her field is as impressive as it is inspiring. She holds a doctorate in physical therapy from the esteemed University of St. Augustine in San Diego, California, driven by a deep belief in the importance of being fully present in every moment. That's an improv technique right there, or philosophy, I should say. Dr. T advocates for embracing the full spectrum of emotions and experiences that life offers. Together with her husband, she founded Movement RX in 2013, a company that revolutionizes traditional physical therapy by providing skilled practitioners the freedom to authentically treat patients with the time, care, and movement education they truly deserve. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the platform, Dr. Theresa Larson.
Woo!
I set the button. Woo! Hey, welcome. Thanks for being on and taking some time out of your schedule to be on with us this morning.
Oh yeah, this was an honor to be asked, and I was just 30 minutes ago watching a monster truck video with my 3-year-old. So I got my morning started. It was actually a monster truck meditation video, which was
okay. You cannot say the words monster truck meditation video without explaining further.
No, there's actually a thing, because he's obsessed with monster trucks, and so I was like, I always meditate in the morning, and he has become my little alarm clock. So I typed in, monster truck meditation, and what came up was monster trucks in slow-mo with rainwater in the background. And so you just sit there and you be with the monster truck in the rain.
I love it so much. I love it so much.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I wanted to jump in on today, and the reason I wanted, you to come on the show and introduce you to Kat is because we were doing a leadership conference. It was great. It was in Glen Eryie in Colorado Springs. I said in the introduction. And we all went on before the event took place. We all went on a hike. And I knew kind of some of the terrain. I said, this is going to be kind of tough for me as a amputee. So early on, after all the instructions were given, I said, I'm going to need some help, right? And so I asked for the help early. And so two people helped me through that process, Randy, and then the other one was you. So that's the kind of where I want to start our conversation today. And the questions around that is how do we, how do we ask for help early and often if we truly need the help? So that's kind of where I want to start our conversation today.
Okay. Well, I really enjoyed helping you, and even though I physically I was helping you, you helped me too. So just so you know, I thought that was when you did ask, I was like, that's what all people need to be able. They need to see that, like they need to do that. And actually, John, something that at the Buffalo Leadership Conference that we did, that's a big part of my talk is like being aware of the blind spots to kind of where we are, how we end up where we are, right? Because a lot of people will, especially in their health journey, I'll relate it to that, may wake up and say, wow, how did I get here? I'm 50 pounds, right, overweight, or I've got chronic back pain, or now I have type 2 diabetes, or my blood pressure is through the roof. And they just focus on that, right? And that, but not the trajectory of that. And the trajectory of that is poor sleep, chronic stress, not handling the things that come up day to day, not asking for help for the things they need, not asking for help early on for the mental struggles that they are dealing with, whether it's with their team, their family, memories, right? They wait until it's really bad to ask for help. And it's more common with things that are more emotional based because there can be a stigma behind it. There is a stigma. But I think that's a key component to leading yourself first. I like to use that phrase, leading yourself first, because if you can identify, okay, this doesn't feel right. This is going to be really hard for me, and I know I can't do it alone. Instead of just sucking it up and trying to do it alone, right? Like asking for help early on can help you with that trajectory, making that trajectory more efficient and effective for you. And we go further together than alone. And so I have a team, even though I am a health provider and I don't do traditional health care anymore, but as a healthcare provider, as a mother, as a business owner, I know that there are going to be things coming up all the time for me that are going to stress me the heck out or cause disconnect. And so I already have set up, help points. I have a therapist I work with, right? I know I have on my schedule, movement time, meditation time. Sleep is a big part of my journey. It can't be a nice to have. It's got to be a must have. And these things aren't dialed in overnight. They take a while, but like I had to ask for help for each of them, right? In different ways. Some of them is with someone, or it's something I've learned on YouTube or something I've studied. But instead of waiting till something's really bad, which I've definitely done, right? Like working on the trajectory of, okay, this is hard. This is not working right now. And if I keep letting it go, it is going to become this massive problem. And so nipping it in the butt early, right, is key. And so that asking for help, though, John, is a strength. It's not a weakness.
Yeah.
It is an incredible strength because you know what? Like asking for help meant I get to connect with you, and you got to enjoy the hike without, slipping and falling. And I got to connect with you, a very powerful person, learn something about you, and that's a strength.
Yeah. As I'm, kind of thinking about it, right? I wanted to share a quick little because I wasn't always like that. I just charged the mountain. Let's go. And in my after I had during my amputation, when I had the amputation, the first few days afterwards, they're trying to flush your system, trying to get you, the doctor's trying to get you to go. And I was struggling with the go. And so I was so weak and so not just out of it, but just couldn't do for myself, that even that was someone had to help me do that, right? And that was the shift in my life I can point back to, that here I was, this world-class athlete on my way to Olympic Games, right? Or in my mind, I was doing that. Had been All-American, and now I can't even use the restroom by myself. And it was an embarrassment. It was humiliating. It was all these things that we think about. But then when the relief came, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got the help, right? Mm-hmm. And so that I began processing that on where in my life do I not ask for help early enough to get the relief that I need to just to be better, so that I can now help other individuals, right? And so that's been a work in progress, and I've seen I'm more acutely aware of those that are in that space where they just want to hang on, and they're damaging themselves or maybe damaging others that might be around them because they will not ask for the help. And so, either you or Kat, I know that you have some great thoughts around that. I'd love to just kind of hear your take on some of that.
Well, shoot, John, you hit the nail on the head. I get to work with a lot of adaptive individuals, actually, and we are all adaptive in our own way, but some more than others, right? Like, because you from listening to your story, a very uncommon injury, clearly. Like so I'll tell you this, like up to 82% of the injuries we see out there are preventable. And then there are just some that aren't, right? Like yours wasn't. Amputation wasn't. But having worked with so many amazing warriors who've had physical, whether they've been put in a wheelchair or lost a limb, I've learned the most from them in asking for help. And like, I love sharing stories of them now when I present, because they set a very good example of like the willingness to ask for help early on. Now, maybe they didn't do that before their injury, right? But like you said, it's humbling and it can be embarrassing, and that's really a story in our mind, right? But it's a human feeling. Like I had my own embarrassing story, which I can share here too, about my own injuries. And once you get through that and you realize, okay, this help is like, it's a relief, right? I'm better for it. I've made a new friend. I feel more connected to humanity when I do that. And actually, if when asking for help early on is, if you can get out of your mind the embarrassment or push that aside and realize it's a strength, and the more you can accept this new normal and the fact that there are going to be some phases where you need your hand held, where you just need someone to be there with you 24/7, and then it's going to be not 24/7 and just a little bit, but like when you can start to accept that you have a new normal that you're navigating, and that it's not always going to be that intense. Like that's a very powerful thing. Sometimes we think when we're in it that it's going to be forever. When's it going to end? And the things we know about, physical injuries and mental injuries, which go together, is that it's like a bell curve, right? It's going to be intense for a little while, and maybe it's going to be a year, 2 years, or a little bit longer or less, depending on the injury. But it will get better if you lean into it versus cope poorly. And the way to lean into it is asking for the help you need along the way. versus coping poorly, beating yourself up, drinking, right? All the things, which, okay, I've done. But the thing is, when you really plow through the storm, as we said at the Buffalo conference, like, work through the storm. Don't try to go around it, but go straight through it like the buffalo. You will end up on the other side where those feelings and symptoms and all that are less than they were. And when things come up again, it's like, oh, you know what? I just need help for that. I need help for that. Maybe you have a struggle, right, with your amputation based around the fit of the socket, right, or the way your hip feels with the prosthetic, or the other hip is starting to cause you problems now. And those things, it's not the same issues you had when you first had the amputation, because you were dealing with this whole new normal. And now you're in the new normal, but you've got things that pop up like irritation, a wound, right? That can, if you have a cut on the bottom of your nub, right, then that's not fun because you're wearing a prosthetic. But those things, you've already, but like, you need help for that. Yeah. And the more you can just lean into that versus being like, angry about it, you're gonna suffer less. That's the thing too, is when the more you can accept where you're at versus wish you were like you were before, or wish something different, you'll suffer less. And I've experienced that in my own life of motherhood, right? It's our bodies are different, our life is different. Right now I have 2 humans to feed and keep alive. It's not a plant, it's humans, right? And then myself and my husband. And I definitely need help. My parents aren't around anymore. And sometimes I'm like, what the heck am I doing? And I ask my friends for help. Like, can you make me a meal? Like, can you make my family a meal? Because right now I'm really struggling. Or, what do you do about this situation? Because I have no idea. Like, I'm okay asking for help now because I am in a new normal. I know that if I don't, it's just going to cause me more suffering. And I know it's a strength and not a weakness. But I know that now based on where I've been as you too, John. So.
Wow.
Brilliant. This conversation is, as usual, reminding me of 12 things, but a couple of them are, there was some research out of Stanford, I think, and University of Chicago, maybe Nicholas Epley and his partner, whose name I'm not going to remember, around asking for help and how we overestimate how the burden on people and really underestimate people's willingness to help and how much they want to help. So they did simple studies like walking around publicly and asking to borrow someone's cell phone or asking someone to take a picture of you. But the students reported that when they thought about having to go out and do this, like ask a stranger to borrow their cell phone, they had stories about, nobody's going to say yes. Everybody's going to feel annoyed. And in fact, they got much higher responses than they expected. And people seemed really, really happy to help. And when they reported on how did it feel to help, most people found a lot of joy in it, which is what I hear you saying, Dr. Larson.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually very interesting because we get in our own way. Essentially, if we were to sum that up, we get in our own way. And one thing I learned on my personal development journey was like, throw out the considerations of what people think. I mean, like we do that all the time. What does that person think? What do they think of me? Like, I'm going to be embarrassed there. Or, and that gets in the way. Like even in business, it's like, that person makes so much. Like they wouldn't want to talk to me. Or that person has experienced so much. Like why would they want to talk to me? And we put ourselves down because of that. And versus just they're human beings. And we all actually underneath the surface, we all bleed and cry and put our pants on the same way, right? And like, so after I learned that, this was early on in my journey after becoming a PT, I was like, screw it, I'm throwing out all considerations. I'm gonna ask for help. I mean, I have been on an airplane where I've been so tired with my infant that I couldn't figure out how to roll up the stroller. It's like, so I'm sitting in line. You know what it's like when you're trying to get on the airplane. Nobody's in a good mood because it's 6 a.m. and I'm like, hold the infant. I need help. This like random guy holding my infant. Please don't drop this. Okay, can someone help me figure out how to roll up this stroller? And then, so it's like we just get in our own way sometimes when we're like, what are people going to think of us? And I've been there. And in business, I am someone you will hear from me a lot if we get to connect, whether it's email or phone or video message. I am constant. I'm not overly constant, but just like persistent and with education and hellos and oftentimes people get lost in their messaging, and so it's like instead of thinking, oh my gosh, they haven't responded to me, I don't know what's going on with them, maybe they don't like me, I throw that out. I'm like, nope, I am just going to keep saying hello. And even with friends, right, if I haven't heard from them in a while, I'll just keep plugging in, hey, how's it going? Versus thinking, oh, they haven't gotten back to me and maybe they don't like me anymore, stuff like that. Like that doesn't even, not even a thought. And I think that's an important distinction for people, is to throw out the considerations of what people think. And that's what drew me to you, John, was like early on in this group, you don't even know. You're like, yeah, I'm going to need help. Got it. Ready to do that. I would love to help you. And you know what? I'd love to connect with you. That was my thinking. No thought of like, oh man, this guy. And I know everyone else there probably felt the same. It was like, oh yeah, of course. Some of them probably didn't know how to help you. That's the thing with the adaptive community, is I find trainers, health providers, when it comes to returning to fitness, or, like people get so strung out in my industry about, or trainers like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to hurt you. You're already hurt. Well, no, you have a new normal. Yeah, I know it's called a paper cut, significant paper cut. However, like, no, you're not going to hurt them more.
Right.
And actually, why don't you, this is what I tell trainers, ask them what they need versus not saying anything at all, or push you into a corner and say, I don't know what to do with you, I don't want to hurt you more. No, ask them what you need. Don't be a wallflower. Like, you're a coach, they're going to teach you more. They're going to make you a better coach. They're going to make you a better health provider. So lean into that. Don't just say, I don't know, or push them off to someone else. Be a resource, and don't be scared of hurting them more, especially if you pay attention to them and ask them what they need.
So yeah, like, so I'm with Kat right now. I got like 15 things in my head. 3, I want to just, that is when I was building with the team, building the military sport program, one of our challenges were the family members that had now received their loved one again, who've been injured in Iraq or Afghanistan, and they're missing limbs, or their spinal cord injured or something, and they're doing the military sport camp. That was exactly what they didn't want them to do. You may not want to do this activity because you might get hurt more. So it was an interesting dynamic to help walk family members through this process, because they began blocking actually the recovery of the sports aspect of it.
Yeah.
So we got another group to manage that piece and give them something to do, so then they can all have this shared experience. But that was a nuance for me. I didn't know that was going on. And then the second, thank you for using the term the new normal. Yes. Hey.
Yeah.
Because yes. And the next thing was, how do we, I guess, are there ways for either one of you, are there ways that we can teach how to be out of the negative talk, right? How do we train people to see the positive side and not the negative side? And I like to kind of equate it in business, because in business we tell ourselves these negative things. I see it all the time happening, right? I don't deserve the promotion, or my idea is not going to get put out. and they're going to think my idea is going to be stupid or something like that. And we negative talk ourselves into something that might be able to actually release the organization. So I'd love to know from either one of you, what type of steps can we take?
Kat, you want to?
Well, it's such a delicious question, and a few things come to mind. One is we have an actual framework that we teach people when we go into organizations about recognizing and managing self-talk. And it has 4 steps. The first is to recognize the self-talk. So paying attention to what are the stories in my head? What am I actually making up in my head? And I love what you just said, Dr. Larson, about letting that go, about sort of, but first you have to know it's there, right? Sometimes we just like, oh, I'm not going to call because I have this idea this person is too important or they won't want to talk to us. So capturing it. The second step is to actually write it down. So we can't always do that in the moment, but if I have a recurring self-thought, the physicality of writing it down can help, and then I can distance myself from it. The third step is to reframe. It's got R's in it, John, a framework with R's in it. To reframe it. And this is the piece that, in the US, especially like in the 80s and 90s, we would have these like super hyper positive affirmations that in some ways were blocks of what we actually were feeling and experiencing. But sometimes our self-talk can be very helpful, right? I can do this, but when it's not helpful, how do I reframe it? And reframing is just what feels true, what can I actually believe, but that's going to be more helpful. So if I want to call someone, I think like, oh, they're too important, they won't want to talk to me. Maybe a reframe is, all he can say is no. Or maybe the frame is, I know when people ask me for my expertise, I feel very honored and very willing to help. Or, right? So how do I just reframe it? And then the 4th R is to repeat that.
Nice.
And repeat it.
Yeah, okay. Just know that that's going to be an iterative process, as you were saying, that it's not a one-time fix. It's a practice of recognizing, distancing, reframing, and then, it's part of meditation, isn't it? Right? Is being able to sort of just pull away from, right? Detach from the thoughts and stories and feelings that I'm having, not block them or try to get rid of them, but just notice that they don't have to be me, or I don't have to get hooked by them.
Yeah, Kat, I love that. And actually I'll take it another step further with coming as so when I work with organizations, sometimes I said it out loud, sometimes I don't, but yes, I care about your business, but I care more about you as an individual and your people. Like I know I said that at the Buffalo conference in a very loud way. Anyway, I get really into it, but the foundation of recognizing, right? It's like, okay, well, the foundation is mindfulness.
Yeah.
And that is the practice of being aware. Well, it's not the practice, it is being aware in any given moment. So that is part of our, the 5 components to well-being is we've got sleep, we've got mindset, food, movement, and then social support. Now, I know there are other components to well-being like financial success, but how we show up to navigate those depends on our own physical health, right? And mental health, which go together. And so a blind spot for people is the fact that training their mind through mindfulness and meditation, which has been extremely powerful for me. There's no really way around it. It's like the best way to train your mind is in mindfulness and meditation. And the research all points to that, like how to be present at any given moment, which be where your feet are, essentially. That's not easy. And nor are we going to do that 100% of our day. But if we can do that a lot of our day, like that actually creates happiness. That is a research. Like you could be cleaning toilets and completely present cleaning that toilet bowl, and you will be happier than cleaning toilets with your mind on a million other things. That sucks, doing that. So if you're present to how you show up, which the practice of being present is mindful meditation. It makes you a more mindful person. So like when you start to be more present, you're like, wow, I showed up really poorly today. Like I wasn't nice to that person because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And then you can go back and say, I messed up versus just plowing through like you normally do. And running over people or not paying attention to how you're showing up for your family and your people at work. And so that's the foundation. I often, I share about that in my presentations because we think of meditation as like a nice to have or a hippy dippy thing, and it's not. It's a necessity for our longevity. I'm like, you gotta take a step back and pause and say, how are we showing up? Do we want to be a big D to people, or do we want to be nice? Do we want to be kind, and do we want to be firm? But like, do we want to be confident? And oftentimes we don't even take a step back to look at how we're showing up to people. And it's okay to mess up. It's okay to not have great days, but it's more important to just say, I'm having a rough day. Let me think about this, or and I think that will help. That will help the recognize, reframe, repeat, piece. But like you have to be doing that in your life in general, and the way to practice that, the lifestyle component, is meditation and mindfulness. Meditation will make you a more mindful person, and that's a foundation for one of the 5 components of well-being that I teach.
Brilliant.
I'm smiling because I'm like, I don't know why this is in my head right now, Kat. I'm seeing everything through the lens of improv right now that she's just saying.
Oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
Be where your feet are, right? So being absolutely 100% present and not going further and down the road. I have because we're all going to fail, circus bow, take the circus bow.
Yeah.
And then I care about you more than your business, right? So I'm going to care about my partner.
That's right.
And make them look good, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm learning.
My work here is done. You know everything, John. All of those principles. And I want to add another one, which is connected to the last one that you said, and ask you about this. The last one, you said, which is, I want to make my partner look good. So I'm going to focus on my partner, not on myself. An extension of that is this idea that we are in community, that we are co-creating, right? And the theme today of asking for help that we started with, I'm curious about your thoughts about that. Like I think in the US, we can tend to be, especially in the US and a lot of Western cultures, very individualistic and very identified with, ourselves. This is me. This is who I am. I have to do it myself. How am I going to look? Right? Which I know meditation can help with as well. But can you talk a little bit about the sort of collective or community level of this as opposed to the individual level?
Asking for help?
Yeah. Wellness, well-being, asking for help, like any of it.
This is actually so interesting. Some of the studies coming out now talk about this social contagion, how health is contagious. So that is when I speak to leaders, like at the Buffalo conference, it was one of the blind spots is you don't realize that your health is contagious to everyone around you, your spouse, your partner, your kids, your people. So we kind of think of ourselves as separate, like you said, Kat, like I'm good, got my own thing going on, people have their own things, but you know what? Everyone's watching you. And vice versa. You're watching everyone else. And like I walk around my house, I gave this example, like there's monster trucks everywhere. There's dinosaurs everywhere watching me. Like they're sitting watching me eat. They're sitting in the bathroom. Like everywhere I look, I'm like, there's things watching me, my kids, and I use that analogy, but it's true. Like the way I show up to my team, we're all virtual. So they're going to be paying attention to how I'm connecting with them. Am I on my phone? Am I doing a million different things? Right. Or am I actually like listening to them, what the highs and lows of their week are? And so that's something I think that is a blind spot for people. It's not a blind spot for me anymore, right? Because this is something I've studied and really looked into in my own life first. Like everything I talk about, I've like experienced in my own life. But then I realized in talking to other leaders, this is something that's a bit of an epidemic too, of not being aware that your actions impact everyone else. And there's this in meditation, there's this concept of humanity, right? Of we're all connected. Underneath the surface, we're so similar. We want to be loved, cared for. We want to be safe. We want shelter, food, all that stuff. We want esteem. Yet on the surface, that looks different for each of us. When we all suffer, we all look a little different in how we suffer. Maybe your way of not feeling loved, you suffer a little bit differently than me. Or, even your injury, we could have the same right shoulder injury, but you're going to experience it differently than me, just because of the way our brain perceives pain. And so I think I navigate that with people and organizations, specifically leaders who want to help their organization be better, is the fact that how their example is contagious. So if they want to see change, they need to be that change. It's as simple as that. But then I show them where, right, they can start showing up better, which is through the sleep, the movement, the mindset training, food, and then social support. Like if you're just connecting with colleagues of work every day, you need other people in your life. I learned that moving to a new town. It's like I had no friends here. My first friends were police officers because I did a talk at like the FBI in Durango or Denver. And I was like, well, I could have friends that are police officers, but like I need other friends too. And so finally meeting other mountain moms and, just people doing great things and, navigating their lives differently. It just was awesome. Like it really helped me. And I feel healthier because of it. And they're not work related.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think the number one thing is just as a leader, which a leader doesn't have to be leading a company. It's like you have a family, right? Leading yourself, you're a human being. Like your health is contagious to others.
Yeah.
There's a David. He's another group that I'm in. I just wanted to kind of honor his thought here around. He's an amputee. We're part of the amputee community together. And one of the things. So if you're listening to this, David says, "Morning, everyone. John, it's David, and I have found out that mental health plays a lot in the amputee community. When they first experience their amputation, they feel like, what am I going to do and how I'm going to live and support my family?" That was definitely me. But what they need to understand that their life is not over and they will survive, and reaching out and talking with someone who's gone through an amputation and get support to let them know they are going to be okay. Exactly what you were saying, both of you were saying. So thank you. I wanted to just honor you that, David. Thank you for being on this morning. I have one last question, then I think maybe get into a game after that. In the work that you're doing, Dr. T, with these various organizations that you were mentioning, with the TRX, the CrossFit, and the Veterans Administration, Adaptive Sports, what have been some of the most rewarding moments in promoting movement and mindset, through these diverse populations?
So some of the most rewarding moments have been, one was when I first started. So when I first became a DPT, I became a DPT, doctor of PT later in my career. So I was a Marine engineer officer. I played a year of professional softball in Italy, and then I got injured. I broke my big toe. Now, if you've ever seen fast pitch softball, I was playing soccer in Italy. But as a pitcher, like if you ever watch fast pitch softball, like we drag our back foot, right? We open up and we drag our back foot. Now that back foot was the one I broke. And so imagine I had to still pitch with a broken toe. So I ended up having to see a sports medicine doctor out in Italy. Couldn't speak a lick of Italian. My husband actually played football, American football in Italy, and could speak Italian, no problem. I did not meet him there though. This was later on. However, it was through that experience I was like, I want to be able to help people navigate these injuries. Now at the time it was orthopedic in nature, but it got me inspired to be in the health field. And so then I decided, okay, I'm going to do PT because one, it was movement based. And then early on, after I got my doctorate, I started to get involved in the Working Wounded Games, and which is a more CrossFit based adaptive sports game, if you will, a competition. And I found a class in San Diego that I could help volunteer, and they would take veterans or active duty military that are going through rehab in the C5 unit with their amputation or spinal cord injury, or TBI, traumatic brain injury, and take them to this gym, and they would do some strength and conditioning. And it was that really got me going. I was like, oh man, I had already started my own practice then. I started my own practice right away because I was like, I do not belong in a regular PT clinic. I need to do my own thing. I don't want a boss. I want to be my own boss, okay? And my husband would even say, yeah, you need to be your own boss. So anyway, but not one of the first classes I taught, I met a man a veteran, or he was still active duty, but going through rehab for traumatic brain injury. It's a pretty significant traumatic brain injury. And so I started to, and so unfortunately this gym wasn't really navigating training very well for these adaptive athletes. They were throwing hero workouts at them. And so that, again, there was another disconnect in the strength and conditioning, sports strength and conditioning field, I should say, was like, these guys are going through rehab currently. Like, they don't need to be doing hero workouts, which are extremely intense. There needs to be a progression to getting them there, because they can get there, but it can't be like day one. And so that was something I also navigated over time. And I took the warriors out of this gym and put them in another gym because and it ended up not being safe for them. But there was a lack of knowledge from the coaches of what to do. And so, but anyway, one of the first warriors I worked with came out of BUD/S. He injured himself and got a traumatic brain injury and was dealing with also alcoholism because he wasn't allowed to be back in the team. He wasn't allowed to continue training. Going back to BUD/S, he developed alcoholism and was just really down and out, had significant migraines. And I started to work in the PT clinic with him. So he wanted to work with me. And
just tell our audience what BUD/S means.
Oh, yeah. Basic underwater demolition something.
Yeah.
So it's the training that Navy SEALs do before they become Navy SEALs. Actually, it's the 6 months of training they have to do. John McCaskill and Philip will probably, like, they could tell you, but they're guys that worked with me at the Buffalo conference. Anyway, this individual I worked with, I helped him navigate his brain injury and training, and helped him with a progressive program, and I really loved it, and I loved helping him. And we also navigated the alcoholism. Like, I'm not a therapist, a mental health therapist, and I made sure he was seeing someone, but I knew that he was missing his purpose. He wasn't able to do the thing he wanted to do for so long. He had to find a new normal. And so helping him navigate that, he ended up deciding to go back and get a kinesiology degree and then become a PT later on. And that took him years, but like, that's his new purpose, is basically doing, working with individuals like himself who've had significant injuries like you, John, and helping them navigate this new normal in a powerful way. What a great new purpose, meeting other Navy SEALs who have injured themselves severely, or other warriors. So that was early in my career the first time I really like, I knew that I was on the right path in terms of my profession, is working with these warriors with him. And I knew I needed to continue to do that. And now in my work, what it looks like is I no longer have a PT clinic, but we have a college level course to help coaches and future health providers navigate how to work with adaptive athletes post rehab. Rehab is a whole new ballgame, but like what's next is the big question. And what I do in the corporate space and in government and contracting space is bring that inclusivity and fitness to the program, because it's all looks like, you know, the average Joe out there, but like the average Joe, there's nobody. We need more than the average Joe. We need the Joe that has the missing limb, the Joe that's in a wheelchair, right? The Josephine that has a TBI. Like, we need to be inclusive to all abilities with these wellness offerings, and they're not. And so that's what I do in the corporate and government space.
Brilliant.
Dodgeball. Average Joe's.
Yeah, I know. I actually showed, oh my gosh, John, in the conference, I showed the quitting scene with Lance Armstrong and Vince Vaughn, I think is his name. And it was like, you know, he's like, oh, they saw him in a bar at the airport or something like that. And like, I'm a big fan. And Vince is like, oh, I quit actually. And he's like, oh man, why, man? Like, you know, if I had testicular cancer, brain cancer, and lung cancer, and then, you know, I wonder if I couldn't quit. Like, you know, it was just a funny scene, like kind of demonstrating why are we quitting on ourselves, or not like waiting till we feel like it to do something. I think this is, you just do it.
Yeah.
You don't quit.
You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah, that's right.
Shall we play a game, John?
Let's play a game.
So I've been thinking, we always play an improv game. I always try to match it to what we're doing. And I've been thinking as we've been talking what would be appropriate, but I can't get past monster truck meditation.
Yeah, okay.
It's by far the most fascinating thing we've said in this very fascinating conversation. So we're going to play a game that I was reminded of by my colleague Gary Hirsch from a consultancy called On Your Feet just yesterday in a session here at the Applied Improv Network conference, and it's got a preliminary step, and then we'll play. So the preliminary step is think of 3 things that you really love. They could be anything. It could be ice cream, it could be puppies, it could be your kids, it could be monster trucks, whatever you want. So think of 3 things. I'll give you a moment to do that. And then we're just going to share those 3 things. So John, when you're ready, tell us 3 things you love.
3 things, music, travel, and The Incredibles.
Music, travel, and The Incredibles. Great. 3 things I love are improv, creme brulee, and reading my daughter's newspaper, because she's the editor-in-chief of the paper at school. How about you, Dr. T?
Okay, I like peanut butter, whipped cream, and my husband's smile.
Oh,
great. Beautiful. Okay, so we have 9 things now. This is a creativity exercise and ideation activity, if we're going to use a, wonky corporate word. We're going to try to come up with a new product or idea, mashing up our favorite things, like monster truck meditation. So, for example, I heard peanut butter and I heard The Incredibles. So I might say, how about we make an incredible superfood based on peanut butter? It's called, the Incredible Peanut Butter, where we take all of the great nutrients and healthy things and stick it in a jar of peanut butter.
So I need you to repeat your 3 because I want to write them down.
If I can remember them. I said creme brulee.
Mm-hmm.
I said reading my daughter's newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said improv.
Yep.
I love creme brulee too.
Yeah, with whipped cream and peanut butter. Yeah.
And John, yours is travel, right?
Mine was travel, music, and The Incredibles.
Okay, got it. Okay, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. So, anybody, any two things that they want?
What I mashed up was the musical creme brulee.
Musical creme brulee.
The musical creme brulee. It's the creme brulee musical.
Fantastic, like the new Broadway hit musical.
The Broadway hit. The Broadway show is the creme brulee.
Brilliant, like about
creme brulee.
Oh, I love it.
Beautiful.
Well, so a new travel experience. This is a product, right?
Yeah.
An incredible travel experience where there's whipped cream and peanut butter and creme brulee served to you every day.
Every day.
I just, like you said, a travel experience, like where you tour around to different places and experience their creme brulee desserts with, whipped cream, peanut butter.
That's great.
Yeah, and they can be dressed as The Incredibles, or just it can be incredible.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. One or two more. Any two things that you want to mash up?
Let's see. How about newspapers and travel?
Mm.
Travel section of the newspaper, I'm thinking. But there's an emotional connection with that too. So how do we do something around the emotional connection of
travel and newspapers?
Travel and newspapers.
How about this? You can upload a product where you can take your travel photos that you've taken and you upload it to a site, maybe it's AI, and they will create an entire front page of a newspaper for you with headlines, stories about your trip.
I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. How about a musical experience centered around reading the newspaper?
Brilliant. Newsboys.
But also, like, I heard when you said that, like there's somehow you can sync the soundtrack for the story. So if it's a happy story, you like Spotify play a happy soundtrack or something. I want to do something with your husband's smile. That was such a lovely thing to learn.
Yeah, that was a great one.
I thought like musical. We're talking about musical, like maybe like a musical toothbrush that for a kid or someone who doesn't brush their teeth long enough, like you brush your teeth until the song ends.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I could use that one for my kids.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. I mean, we could play forever, but that's the game. And it's a super fun way to sort of generate ideas for real, right?
Yeah,
just like,
I love it.
Things and mash them up. My colleague Gary Hirsch said to us, there are no new ideas. They're just new collisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, this has been fantastic. You have some things I think we can also share, but some resources that people can. You alluded to some earlier. Would you please share those resources with the audience, and then Kat, you can share yours, and I'll share mine, and
sure.
For additional helps.
Absolutely. If you want to get a hold of me, I have, especially from the show, like you can email me, Teresa.Larson@movement-rx.com. So THERESA.Larson@movement-rx.com. And I have an actual lifestyle RX printout that I can send you. So anyone from the show listening, I'm happy to send you this because it's actually can be super helpful for you to kind of understand where in your life you can start working on your health and not make it a nice to have and a need to have. My company is Movement RX. It's a great way to find me too. If you can't remember that email, movement-rx.com. And best social media is LinkedIn. So I'm Dr. Theresa Larson, DPT on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And we'll put those in the show notes. And Kat, your book, of course, is
training to imagine practical improvisational theater techniques for creativity, communication, leadership, and learning, or something like that. It's a very long subtitle. Whole bunch of principles of improv, and then a lot of activities around how to apply it individually and collectively. Yeah.
Great activity in that book. Highly recommend Kat's book. And then I have 10 Power Stories to Impact Any Leader. Journey your way to leadership success. And so after reading that book, you should have 10 of your own stories that you can share in times of crisis. So thank you all for being on. What a great show.
Thank you.
Today. It's been fantastic. I'm trying to, yeah, no, this was really good. And I'm glad it went into, it always goes in a great direction. So I'm really, thankful. So thanks for being a part of Performance Shift. Remember, change is inevitable, but the right mindset and tools, you can shift your performance and achieve greatness. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll continue to explore and transform with the power of change. Go forth, inspire your world, everybody, and we'll chat with you back here next week. Bye for now.
Thank you.